Hi guys, welcome to a video on multiple image animations based on mouse over or dropping leaves. So I had a student in a previous class that wanted to have an animation where she mouse overed some leaves on a bench and they animated down, like floated down off the bench. So I didn't get a chance to help her with it, but I have just done up like a really sort of basic example with very simple animations for anyone who wants to do something similar, and you can build on that to suit your purposes. So here we have a canvas and we've got 4 leaves. So what we want to happen is when we mouse over these leaves, we want them to animate down the page so that they land on the ground. Yeah, as I say, the animation is going to be very basic. It's going to be a straight line, but you could build on it if you felt the need. So here's our code. You can find it in the course GitHub. First thing we're going to do up here is we're going to set up some variables. So we're going to set our variables up as arrays that hold a value for each image. So there's 4 images, so each array here holds a value for each one of those. That way we can use our array to change our variables based on which image we're dealing with. So we have 4 images, so we're going to set up some variables for each image. The first one is the image currently animating? So at the start the image isn't animating, we're not doing anything, but we need a value that's going to tell us that it's going to start animating. So we're going to call that variable isAnimating, and we're going to have an array of 4 false values. The next variable is has the image finished animating, and we are going to have an array that has 4 false values that says it has animated. That means that when it gets to its position that we want it to end at, we are going to set that it has animated so that we know that it's animated, so we don't need to do anything to it again. We're going to set up a variable for the start positions. So these are first positions, and that's an array of 4 arrays, and each array holds an X and a Y position. So that's the X and Y for the first image, that's the X and Y for the second image, third, fourth. We need to set up some variables for our end positions. So our end positions here are called second positions, and they're an array of an array with an X and a Y value. So that's where we want the first image to end, that's where we want the second image to end, third, fourth. Then we're going to set up a variable that we're going to use to draw our images, and that's going to be the current position. So the current position after the animation has been done. So the current position we're just going to set to start with, we're going to set it to be the first positions. Yeah, so it's going to start at the first positions when we first open it. As you can see here, they're in their first positions. This stuff is just loading the image in. Again, we're using the same image, so we only need to load one image into that variable. This is setting up the canvas, as you well know. This is our draw function. The background is yellow every time we draw, and then we're going to draw each image. We're going to use a for loop. If you don't know what a for loop is, Google it. Just look for JavaScript for loop. Basically, this just does a piece of code that's inside these brackets as many times as you tell it. So we're saying it's 4 times. Look up the structure of that. I don't really want to go into that right here, but this is a for loop. So this code in here will happen 4 times. So at the moment, we're not going to animate anything. We're not animating anything at the moment. We're just drawing our image. So our image is going to use our image here. That's the image we're going to draw. And we're going to use our current positions values for our X and Y. So that's our X, that's our Y. And the size is 40 and 40. So you can see here that how we're accessing the current positions is that the current positions, we're going to use this little I value. So in a for loop, we can use I as a number that increases every time we run it. So the first time we run it, it's going to be equal to 0. That's where we start it. And then every time we run this, it's going to increase. This means that we can draw our image and access each position given that index. So current positions, index 0 and 0, the x position. So if this is our current positions, that's what we're looking at. And to get the 0, the index of the x position is 0. And then here you can see that current positions, index 0, index 1. So that's the y position. Yeah, I mean, take a bit of time to sort of understand those for loops. You can do things like you can console log out the I. Just muck about with that just so you make sure you understand that this index is increasing each time, which gives us access to every position here and does it 4 times using the different positions. Okay, so there they are. Our next function here we're going to leave for a second. That's how we progress our animation. But what we're going to look down here is a function that's on the mouse moved function that's given to us by P5. So every time the mouse moves, we want to test where the mouse position is and see if it's over our image. Because when we want to go over our image, we want to start the animation. So we're going to do that 4 times, and we've got a mouse move handler. So we've just moved all the code that we want to do that into its own function, so it's easier to understand. This function is called a mouse over handler, and it takes an index. So it takes a number 0 to 4 that will allow us to know which image we're talking about. So it's essentially the image index. So 0 equals the first image, 1 equals the second image, 2 equals the third image, and 3 equals the fourth image. So we are going to do our mouse over handler for our 4 different images. Okay, so if the mouse is inside the starting position for the image, then we're going to start the animation. Okay, I'll show you how to start that animation in a second. That's that stuff commented out there. But what we're just going to do here is we're just going to console log that it's in image whatever. So if the mouse is in, we're using this mouse in rectangle that's been explained in some of the previous tutorials, so I won't go into that. But if the mouse is in the rectangle that is described by the first position, the first position of that image, the first image, 40 by 40, then we will console log that we're inside that image. So let's just check that works. We've saved that. Let's clear this. How do you clear this? And let's just refresh it. Okay, so we can see if we mouse over this, we can see the console's telling us that we're in image 1 every time we move the mouse. If we mouse over this, we're in image 2. Now we're in nothing. Now we're in image 3. Now we're in image 4. So that's working. So when we're inside the image, we want to start the animation. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our isAnimating variable. Firstly, we're going to test that we want to make sure that we only reset the image isAnimating to true if we haven't already done it. So if isAnimating is false, that's what that exclamation mark does. So if the image we're talking about, image 1 for example, is not animating and it hasn't already animated, then we want to set isAnimating to true. And that'll start the animation on every one of our images. So here, I might just comment out let's just leave that for a second. So we're setting out. So sorry, I just lost my train of thought there. But here we are. If we scroll over, let's console log isAnimating. So let's see what the value is. Let's see whether that changes to true. So I'm actually gonna console log this outside actually. Okay, so hopefully, yep, okay, so nothing's animating. We can see it's just giving us false. But when we go in here, we can see that it's going to true. It's false on all the other ones, but it's going true to this one. We can see it's doing something, and not a very useful console log, but anyway, we can see it's doing something. Yeah? I can tell you what it's doing. It's setting is animating to true. All right. So let's leave that for a while. So now we know that when we roll over the mouse in its first position, the animation is going to start. So we're going to say is animating equals true. So here we're just going to draw our animation. We put our progress animation into a function here. And this is the function for progressing our animation. And it's called progress animation. Again, this takes a parameter, which is the index of the image. Yeah. So this is the image, 0 being the first image, 1 being the second image, etc., etc. So we need to do a few things. We need to check that the current image, A, needs to be animated, i.e. is animating equals true, and B, that it has not already finished its animation, i.e. has animated is false. So if those two things are correct, so is animating is true, but has animated is false, then we will progress our animation. So we'll do some stuff in here. So the way that we progress our animation is pretty rudimentary. If the x position is less than the final x position of the animation, then we're going to increase it by 1. So that's what this line of code here is doing. So if the current position is less than the second position, the second x position, then we're going to increase the current x position by 1. We're going to do the same for the y position. So if the current y position is less than the finishing y position, then we're going to increase the y position by 1. If both the x and y have finished their animations, then we're going to set has animated to true. So we're going to say it's already animated, yeah, and then you don't have to animate it anymore. So we do that by just checking that the current x position is greater than or equal to the final x position, and the current y position is greater than or equal to the final y position. And then we're going to set has animated for that image to equal true. So this basically is now going to do our animation. So here we roll over that, and the image starts animating. So you can see that image 1 is being increased, its position is being increased by 1 until it gets to its second position. Here's the same for 2, we're in image 2, image 3, image 4. So a lot of concepts in there to sort of understand, but again with these videos I don't like to make them too long that you've got too much to understand. I've just wanted to walk through every line of code. You can now just ask me some questions in our tech chat, or you can ask your tutor if you're not in my class. So there we go, that's the end of that video. Sorry, my wife just walked in. Okay, I will leave it there. Bye.